Boston College lands their first pair of commitments. You may not have heard of them, but I'll explain how they could make a big impact on the Eagles next season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. Big weekend on the transfer portal for a lot of teams. For Boston College, I got to admit, it's been a little quiet. There hasn't been huge news for any big name guys yet, but they did land two transfers. I'll explain who those guys are. We're going to talk about some other names to watch. We have a lot to talk about, and I'll explain maybe kind of how this transfer portal philosophy is working so far under Bill O'Brien, which has changed a little bit from Jeff Hafley. Get into all of that on today's show. So, two commitments. Let's start with the bigger name. Fun name. Gonna give him the fun name. That is VJ Wilkins, a transfer from Campbell University, school where Connor Litton, if you remember that kicker BC had 2 years ago, that's where he kicked this year. Well, VJ, he goes by Rocket Wilkins, and he put together quite the freshman season where he was all FCS freshman All-American. So he was an All-American in the FCS level and put together 2,000 all-purpose yards that season. Obviously, that's a big help for what they need. He was on campus this weekend and committed, according to reports over the weekend. So what is this kid? If any of you probably are like, I've never watched a Campbell football game. I admit I am, been a college football fan for many years. I have never seen a Campbell football game. I will say this. He is 5'10", about 185 pounds. He claims he has 4.3 speed. When they put that in their bios or huddle films or whatever, you have the right to be a little skeptical. That's part of the game, right? Like sometimes kids are going to blow up their stats to make themselves more attractive to coaches. Excuse me. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's how it works. 4.3 though opens your eyes. If it's 4.4, it opens your eyes, right? He's fast. And you look at the Twitter bio, but you look at his film. And I encourage you, go find his highlight reels. It's out there. And you see something that you really needed on this team, which is not just speed, because you had speed with Jaden McGowan, but you have a quickness and the ability to change direction that I hate saying this because he's obviously elite and at a different level, is a little bit more like Zay Flowers. And obviously this is a kid transferring in from Campbell. So, we're going to take this with a drop of water here. I'm not saying this kid is Zay Flowers. I'm just saying he's going to have a skill set that does a lot of the same types of things, maybe just not at the elite level that Zay does. Because you're replacing, you look at what BC lost in the portal. You lost Jaden McGowan, who you had high hopes for when he came in with Jeff Hafley. Clearly, he didn't fit in with what Bill O'Brien was doing. Finished the year not really doing much of anything. He had 2 catches for 0 yards, and he had a couple kick returns. That was about it. You need this kid, Wilkins, to do a lot of what McGowan was supposed to do. And I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I'm not taking McGowan's side. I'm not taking O'Brien's side. It just didn't work. Okay. I'm just saying that they need somebody like this because you're going to have Lewis Bond, who has good speed, but he's more, over the middle kind of, physical catches, things like that. You got Reed Harris, who's your big go up and get him guy. I've seen a lot of folks saying he should be getting more balls. Maybe true. Maybe he's doing what he should be doing right now. I'm not sure he's an 8 catches a game kind of guy. I think he's more of a couple catches a game in big spots type of guy. You need something else to go on with that. You missed Jaden Skeet at the end of this season. Don't know what happened to him. Bill said he was out, so I'm guessing it was an injury. He's been out all for most of this second half of the season. He'll be a welcome re-addition to this group. But then you add Wilkins in, and this is where things get interesting because he's a skill set that I feel is very different than the other wide receivers in this room. He's lightning fast. He can do things after the catch, and he's going to make defenders miss. He's an explosive wide receiver. And yes, Reed Harris is an explosive wide receiver in his own way. Lewis Bond, he can be explosive. And I think Jaden Skeet, given the chance, will be. But I feel like with some coaching, VJ Wilkins can go up that level. And this is my first piece where I am going to say this. I see a lot of folks looking at who BC is getting in the portal. They're getting, they're going after, you'll see in our conversation, kids from FCS programs. The higher level Power 5 program transfers, whether it's, James Williams of Nebraska or Prince Umiwalawin from Nebraska or, the Humphrey from Georgia or some of these quarterbacks. Right now, the way that Bill O'Brien is looking at this, BC's not going to be in those they're not going to compete to get those guys. It's just not going to happen. And I have to say, with Jeff Hafley, they didn't do that either. But what they're going to do kind of lines up with his philosophy about everything, which is get guys you can develop. Get guys you can get in here, coach up to bring up to that next level. And I honestly do believe that there is something to be said about getting kids that have been successful at a lower level and coaching them up to be successful at a higher level. I wonder, and I'm not sure, but we can see if getting a guy like VJ Wilkins will be a better fit than going after some middle of the road wide receiver from, we've already seen it happen with South Carolina and Texas Tech. It didn't work. Maybe getting lower ranked kids and then coaching them up might help, get these guys to a higher level. It's an interesting philosophy. I'm not sure it will work. I have my doubts, but I also think that there may be some truth to it. But a guy like Wilkins, this is a kid that has high level possibilities if he's put in the right position. So I like this one. The intangibles and the measurables are higher than most of these other kids that you could just pick up from any, Joe Schmo from any school. He is aching to get up to that next level. He's hungry. He's hungry to get to the Power 4 level. BC's going to give him that opportunity. I like that hunger. Hunger is going to help you win games. So VJ Wilkins, welcome. I think Rocket. Now you have on your offense a rocket and a turbo. Now you need the beers. No, I'm kidding. Rowdy and Rock. I don't know if you guys have heard of Rowdy Beers and what's the other one? There's Rowdy and something beers, Rocky Beers, I think, or something like that. I'm just kidding, but you got to get Turbo and Rocket. You're halfway there. And going for lower ranked players, just look at quarterbacks right now. Who's your starting quarterback at BC? He was a starting quarterback at FIU, which is like the dregs of G5 football at this point. He got hungry. He wanted a chance. They coached him up. He was successful. Compare that to Jerron Bradley and Jaden McGowan, both from Power 4 programs. Didn't work out. And that's not to, I'm not trashing either of the kids. I'm just saying the situations just didn't work out compared to Grayson James, who came in from a low G5 program. There may be something to it. And it may be for a school like BC that doesn't have a ton of resources compared to some of these other schools with the NIL buckets that they have. It might be a wise and thrifty way to get talent to the school. In a moment, this next one's not going to be so much about thrifty and going after lower level players. Well, he kind of played for one, but a position that could redefine how BC uses a certain position on their offense. I'll get into who that is in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Only a few more weeks left in the NFL season. If you've been following me along with me here on the podcast, I've been telling you to fade on the Patriots, go against them as much as possible. And as this season has dragged on, I used live statistics on Sunday when they were playing the Cardinals to say this game's just going to get worse, and it did. And you know what? You get in, you get the odds. I think it jumped up to like +9, but the Patriots are playing terrible. They ended up losing by 14, 17 points. It was an easy win. So you can get yourself started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet with FanDuel.com. That's all you got to do. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Rocking and rolling here at Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. I am of Eagle Insider. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. And when you're done with this episode, if you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. He does a great job of talking about everything. He's talking Heisman, college football playoffs, transfer portal. There's so much going on. Check his podcast out after today's episode. Now, little quick note here before we jump into our second segment. Some folks may be jumping into this Monday episode going, "Hey, AJ, why aren't you talking about BC basketball?" I'm going to tell you this. I cover everything. But right now, I run a business. This is a business first. This is not, it's a passion project, but I do this because it's business. BC basketball kills my business. Talking about that program is like a death knell for clicks on my episode. So here's my 20 seconds on that game. BC played just good enough to beat Stonehill, beat them by 4 points, and had to hit free throws at the end of the game to actually win that game. We only have a few more out of conference games for BC basketball before things could get really ugly. They got to figure things out quickly. And I'm not here to trash on BC basketball. I'm just saying I don't cover them as much because no one wants to talk about them when I could be talking about the transfer portal and everyone wants to hear about that. But I'm going to say right now, they won, and a win's a win, but it didn't feel like much of a win. They got to play better. That's it for that. All right. Second transfer commitment was actually the first commitment, but I wanted to lead with Rocket because Rocket's more fun to talk about. Second one they landed was Zeke Moore, a H-back tight end from FAU. So another lower G5 school. Now, if you look up his stats, good luck, because I think he had like 5 catches for 10 yards over the last 2 seasons. He's 6'2", 245 pounds. This is not a tight end that you're going to use like you used Jeremiah Franklin last year. He's going to do a specific role in this offense, and it's something that's very vital. And it's something Kamari Morales did a lot of last year, which is basically lining up as a fullback / H-back in the backfield to block. You need a guy like that when you're doing a lot of power running. It's interesting to think about. I wonder if you guys have been saying it, if they're going to add in some plays where Grayson James lines up under center next year, and then you have a fullback and a halfback there to go along with it. Maybe some tush pushes. Who knows what you do? But it opens up a lot of possibilities with a pro-style offense. Now, he could, and I bet he will, be used in the passing game too. You can't just, like, having, human sleds out there that are just blocking tight ends that don't have hands, that's a thing of the past. Most tight ends now, that unless they're Jack Conley, who's an offensive lineman, they need to be able to catch the ball. So he could be doing that too. Now, I don't expect him to be like, Darryl Johnston or Kuhn from the Green Bay Packers, who's a huge part of this offense. But I think bringing him into some of these packages to help get, Turbo Richards or Jordan McDonald open, get them going, that's going to be a huge piece for BC, and that'll help, hopefully open up some of the blocks, open up some of the running game. I think you're going to see a lot of that out of Zeke Moore. Obviously his commitment was very quiet. The only way I found out about it, I knew he was on an official visit, but he just changed his Instagram photo. I mean, Instagram bio. Didn't even put like, most kids are like gunning for those graphics that, committed and it's them, sitting in a throne or whatever. His literally was just changing it from FAU to BC. So very, very quiet. But as I said, this is a commitment that could mean some good things. Now, my big question, and I'm wondering where BC's at with this, is are they done at tight end? Because I still wonder if they're looking at a tight end who can get in there and catch some passes too, like more like what Morales did in the passing game. Jeremiah Franklin clearly is going to do a lot of that. I thought he was underused this year. He could definitely be more of a bigger role in this offense. And if you used him specifically for the passing attack, I mean, he's improved leaps and bounds since his freshman year. So I would be okay with that. But you probably want some depth there too, because it's a violent position. It's one where you could lose guys. And it's like Jeremiah Franklin, Matt Regan, and then a whole bunch of guys that you aren't really proven. You got, Danny Edgehill and Ryan Boltwood, who really didn't play all that much. You have 3 freshmen coming in with Stevie Amar, DJ Johnson, and Bryce Lewis. You might want one more like grad student that can just kind of come in. Let Franklin be the lead guy. But having a Batman and Robin like you had with Morales and Franklin this year actually worked out really nicely. So maybe Reagan can be that guy, but maybe you want to go out there and get one more. I'm not sure if BC's doing it. I haven't got a good gauge if they have been so quiet during this portal, and not saying that they're not doing anything. It's that everything that they've done has been absolutely silent. They're not telling me anything. It's all me researching and reaching out to the potential recruits to find things out. So they could be. I just haven't heard about it. And so we've got another week coming up here that's going to be important for transfers. I also wonder if BC is also slow playing this, because right now, I hate using this word, but it's like an orgy of spending from all these other schools that are like buying out all these players and getting all these NIL deals going and using up all their cash flow and just getting guys fast. Maybe when things settle, there's going to be some real good, value guys out there, guys that you can get that are going to be good for your program, but aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg like you would have done the first week or so when, LSU and Texas A&M and Notre Dame and all these others, Penn State, are all doing these things to buy all these players. Maybe you let the dust settle a little bit. I'm very interested to see how these next couple of weeks go, because it's been quiet. It has been quiet, and the guys that they've been going after are just kind of under the radar guys. Now, in our final segment, there's still a few names out there that they have been looking at. They had a few on for visits. I'll explain who those guys are and a few other names to watch for in just a moment. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. We are wrapping things up here at Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. When you were done with this, man, go back and listen to some of our episodes last week. There's tons of transfer portal talk. I've been getting into names, situations, all sorts of things that you want to know about. Go back and check those out in our archive on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, totally free everywhere you go. So make sure you take advantage of that. Now, BC has their 2 commitments, but there's a bunch of names that they've been interested in. And they have new offers out this week as well. And I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to put this out there. Again, they're lower level players, so breathe. The first one is Amir Johnson, and he plays at Merrimack College, which I didn't even know had a football team. But doing some research, they're apparently an FCS independent school along with Sacred Heart. And they have a guy, Amir Johnson, who is a 6'4 offensive lineman, 310 pounds. He was on campus for an official visit this weekend. Some decent pass block grades are kind of all over the place. Some games, I think it was, he played a D1 school and it was really high. And then there was a few that were just not as good, but he was his first year up. So, his first year playing, he was a sophomore. He has 3 more years of eligibility. Um, could be a guy that you could build up again. You need to build up some depth in that offensive line room. You missed out on a couple big ones in the recruiting classes under Matt Applebaum the last couple of years. You probably want to add some more bodies. Could be one. And again, I would think if this is one guy you're looking at, there's probably another move that goes with it too, like another more established guy, someone that you could plug and play next year. Because I'm not sure, like Amir Johnson is a guy that you can immediately just throw right in and go, oh, he's going to be in that mix. He could in a year, but that's what you need. You need guys in a year that could be battling for that spot. So that's why I think he could be someone to watch for. And I'd put him on commitment watch. I think there's a good chance that they could land him. I'm not sure if he has any other visits. I haven't heard much about him really checking out other schools. And then a name that I wanted you guys to know about. Of all, I like Wilkins. I think he's interesting. Zeke Moore is he's more of a vibe, right? Like he's a vibe. Like you need like a big blocking tight end. You're gonna get him through that. This other guy that was on this weekend is one that really gets me interested. And his name is Onye Nwosi from Valparaiso. Now, why does he intrigue me? He's an edge rusher. He's 6'5 to 255. He played a little bit, in between, but he was an edge rusher on the outside before that. He scored an 80.8. Again, it's FCS, so take that with a grain of salt. But he had 25 pass hurries this last year to go along with 3 sacks. How many pass hurries Donovan Nazaraku had? I think he had 27. So, again, I am not comparing him to Donovan Nazaraku, but you look at what he can do and that he's already kind of established that. Coach him up a little bit. Wonder if he can pull that up at the FBS level. Remember, before you start crapping all over this, Jared Verse played for Albany before he got to Florida State. And I'm not saying this guy will be Jared Verse. I'm saying you can find talent at the FCS level and get them to be really good for your team. BC needs edge rushers that know what they're doing. This kid looks like he knows what he's doing. I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. I will take an FCS kid that has proven that he can be a good pass rusher over some middling kid that went to Georgia Tech or Kentucky, hasn't shown anything yet. I don't care if they played at a Power 5 program. If they haven't shown anything, that's not going to help BC, who desperately needs established edge rushers next year. Nwosi, and I'm totally probably botching his name, has a pedigree, and you can coach him up. You did it with Q Hutchins. This kid has I would say probably a higher potential than that. He would be a perfect fit. And again, you add him, maybe you go out and find another edge rusher from some other school that has more of a pedigree. But I think this would be a great one. This is one that Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider has been texting me about before he even entered the portal. So I am very excited about him. And yes, he plays for Valpo, but I think he would be a huge get for BC, and one that come September, we're going to be like, wow, we were talking about this kid. This is a kid that we're going to be watching all year. He could be the next, big edge rusher for BC. So that's that. Finally, just an update. I've been talking a lot about Dylan Lonergan, and late last week, On3 had BC as a team to watch. This is a quarterback from Alabama, recruited by Bill O'Brien, and they were the team to watch. I've been watching him. If you listen to my podcast, I had it before On3 did. I saw the connections. I said, this is going to be like too good to be true. Well, little kink in the works is that he's going to visit Georgia this week. Now, my one caveat to this, so my one, maybe this isn't as big of a deal as it is. Like he comes here, he's going to get a chance to play because he's going to battle Grayson James and maybe he wins. Who knows? Or maybe something happens, God forbid, to Grayson James. He'll have his chance. And if after that, I think Grayson James is done after this year, anyways. Then he has the chance again. Like he has opportunities. You go to Georgia. They have Jaden Rashada. They have Ryan Puglisi. They could potentially have Carson Beck. They've got a kid coming in. They are just stacked with guys that are going to ready to play. Why would you choose to transfer into that? Like if your goal is to play, yeah, you want to challenge yourself, but the odds are stacked against you. You're the new guy against all that talent. And I think Gunnar Stockton's still there too. You got all these guys. So maybe he goes, checks that out, maybe then realizes I don't have a chance in hell of playing there. Or if I have a very small chance, I might, I football players, they probably think they have the best chance to do it every time they go out there. I'm just saying, I'm thinking from a rational standpoint. Maybe it's just money. I don't know. But he's looking at Georgia. We'll have to wait and see. I think, again, this is going to be another busy week on the portal. Really interested to see what BC does. So check out all our work at Eagle Insider here at Locked On Boston College. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And tell all your friends about Locked On BC. You get to listen to me talk Boston College, a lot of football, some other sports sometimes here on the show. And I appreciate each and every one of you who have made us your first listen every day. We're a free and available podcast on all platforms and on YouTube. I hope you guys are all having a great holiday season. I am too. I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.